Welcome you all to the subject of cost accounting. We are going to study a module 1. In module 1, part A consists of objectives and scope of cost accounting. Now in this module, we are going to study what are the objectives of cost accounting and how this cost accounting is applied. Now let us see what is the definition of the cost accounting. Professor S.J. Weldon has defined this. Now cost accounting is the classifying, recording, and appropriate allocation of expenditure of product or services and for the presentation of SUTA for the purposes of control and guidance of management. Now here we can see that in cost accounting the basic object is to understand the various costs. We are having the basis of various classifications and then we are allocating all these expenses to the respective finished goods, and finally it is presented in a format which is essential for analysis purpose. Now with this we'll continue further. Now let us see what are the objectives of cost accounting. Basically we can study three main objectives of cost accounting. First one is determining the cost of the product. Second one is whatever product we manufacture, we have to fix their selling price. And last one is to control the cost. The basic objective of cost accounting is to find out the cost of the product, because unless we know the cost of the product, we cannot decide a selling price. And once we know the various elements of cost, then we'll try to control the cost in future. Now with this, we are going for the objectives of cost accounting. Now let us study the first one, determining cost. Cost is determined by accumulating proper allocation of cost to the finished goods. So here we need to understand what are the various classification of cost. Firstly, every kind of cost is taken into account before valuing what is the cost of manufacturing finished goods is. Now basically there are two types of a cost. One is a direct cost, another is indirect cost. So we are going to study this in detail, but ultimate objective is find out the cost whether those are incurred directly or indirectly for the purpose of manufacturing a product or rendering a services. A second one is fixing sale value. Now when cost of the product is known, the selling price is calculated as cost plus profit. So once we know the cost, obviously we can add our profit margin and then we can decide our selling price. So this will help to fix the selling price above the cost to avoid any loss. If you don't know the cost of the product, it is possible that it may be sold as per the market demand at a lower price also. And if it is sold at a lower price, there would be a loss. Now when you know the cost, you will never sell at price less than cost. So you will always try to sell at cost plus profit. So cost accounting plays a very important role in determining the cost, and once we know the cost, then we can decide the selling price. So this is the second main objective of the cost accounting. Now third one is, this is the most essential, whatever cost is there, we have to try to reduce the cost. Reduction in the cost means we are going to get more profit margin. This cost is classified to the extent of last element of cost. Now what does it mean? It means we are finding out the cost and that is also to the last element. What is the last element? Let us see the example. If you want to find out what is the cost of material, then in material also you classify as main material, miscellaneous material. So each and every element of cost is important for us. Each and every cost of the material is important for us. So when you know what is your cost, you can compare this cost with the competitor's cost. If our cost is higher, then we'll try to control the cost. So How we are implementing this objective of controlling the cost? By knowing the cost first, every element of the cost, and then we will decide about whether that cost is higher or that cost is can further be reduced or not. Now, what is the basis of doing this? Now, in the first thing, we can understand that this cost is compared either with the past results, means whatever cost we are incurring now, we'll try to find out what was the cost earlier. If it is more, then it means we have to think about reducing the cost. Otherwise, the second one is standard cost, means whatever cost we expect. So we have planned that our cost will be say 100 rupees towards the material. If this cost is coming to 101, then it has gone beyond our expected cost, what we call as a standard cost. So if it is more than a standard cost, again there is a signal for us that this cost is to be reduced. So we'll concentrate on that. Now these three terms are used here: past result, or say standard cost, or estimated cost. So we should have some base also with us, either from the past record or future expectation. And if the cost is more than that, then there is a scope for reduction of the cost. We have to study every cost element properly. So this gives the scope for controlling the cost and reduce the cost. So how these objectives can be summarized here? First one is we have to determine the cost. Now when you study the classification of cost and then presentation of cost, this part will be more clear, but the main objective is find out the cost of the product. Once we determine the cost of the product, then selling price can be fixed very easily. And obviously selling price will be more than a cost price. If in a market the product is sold at a lower than a cost price, it is better we should not manufacture the product, because selling price is less, so there will be a loss. And last one objective we have studied is controlling the cost. Controlling the cost means once you know the cost, we can think about reducing in the cost. The next one is how these objectives of cost accounting can be achieved. Now this is just a simple process of how the cost accounting is working. So we will try to know in this how the cost accounting works. The first one is that we are classifying the cost. Then we are recording the cost. There is an appropriate allocation of a cost. Whatever cost data we are preparing in a specific format. Just like a profit and loss account, you prepare all the expenses you are accounting, and when you prepare a profit and loss account, it is prepared in a manufacturing account, then trading account, and then profit and loss account. So only manufacturing expenses are taken in manufacturing account, trading and related expenses are taken in trading account, and in P&L account, something which is neither a manufacturing nor in the nature of a trading are accounted, so all other expenses. So in financial accounting, this is the way of presentation. In cost accounting, there is another way of presentation that we will be learning by way of a cost sheet, where a cost sheet is broken up into a various parts and suitably the data is arranged. Now whatever data is there, that we have to analyze, and finally we have to take a decision on the basis of this data. So let us understand what is the scope of cost accounting. Now first one is we have to ascertain the cost. So let us understand this concept first. The cost of manufacturing of a product or rendering a services is calculated. So in cost accounting, how we start with the working on the cost accounting? First we start working out what is the cost of manufacturing a product is. Now let us take one example of this, a practical example. And the practical example is we are manufacturing a shirt. So what are the requirements for the shirt? Now when you want to manufacture a shirt, you will require some material. So let us study about the material only, how the cost is determined. So if you talk about the material, the cost of material consists of what? Either a cloth is required. So for stitching a shirt, a cloth is required. Then while stitching a shirt, we require a thread. The buttons are fitted in a shirt. So we require a button, we require a canvas, we put this canvas in a collar, so we require a canvas. So like this, there are different types of materials we require for manufacturing a shirt. Now this is so far as material is concerned. Now for manufacturing a shirt, we require a labor also. So additional cost is labor cost. What are the costs we incur for this? We pay workers wages. So workers are engaged in stitching a shirt, so we are paying some wages to them. Now these are the costs towards the workers wages. Now this is not the end of the cost. Beyond this also, there are certain other expenses like say a rent of the machine. We require a machine for stitching a shirt. Whatever rent we pay, now that is neither a material nor a labor. It is called as a overheads. In a classification of cost, this concept will be more clear when we study what are the classification of cost. Now, what are the other overheads possible? Electricity charges. You can say factory rent also is also overhead. So all expenses. Now, all these expenses we are thinking about for manufacturing a shirt. So basically, a material is required, workers are required, and third one is other overheads. Now factory electricity is also an example of a overhead. Now can you calculate for every shirt what is the factory electricity charges? The answer is no, but at a lump sum we can take a monthly charges towards the electricity, and then we can find out what is the cost per shirt based on what is the quantity we manufactured in a month. So this way, all costs are accumulated here, whether material, labor, and overheads, and then we are arriving at what is the cost of manufacturing this shirt is. So we can say all these costs are accumulated to work out the total cost towards manufacturing a shirt. When you take all these costs together, then only you can arrive at answer what is my cost of manufacturing a shirt is. Second one is every element of cost. Now, whatever we are talking about the material cost, labor cost, or overhead, these are called as an element of cost. Now, every element of cost is understood with reference to what it is and the way it is incurred. Now, there are different classifications here. Whatever costs are there, they can be material cost, labor cost, overheads, they can be fixed cost, they can be variable cost, they can be direct cost, they can be indirect cost. So we have to understand what is the main feature of that cost is. So this will be covered in your classification of cost to understand what is the feature of that respective cost is. That is called as analysis of the cost. We are going to analyze the cost. Then third one is allocation of cost. Certain cost is incurred which we can directly identify to the product. For example is, let us say, raw material cost. When you purchase a raw material, you immediately identify for which product you are purchasing a raw material. So this raw material cost is charged to the concerned goods. But there are certain expenditures which we incur and we cannot identify to any specific product. For example, you can see a factory rent. When you pay a factory rent, you cannot say whether I'm paying for product X or Y or Z. Because in a factory, all three products are manufactured at different places in the factory, and overall rent for the factory is one. Now here, whatever rent we are paying, we have to allocate that cost to the respective product. So what is the thing that basis of allocation of this cost? Factory rent is allocated to multiple products on the basis. So you are learning in a departmental accounts also. Factory rent is paid if product X, Y, and Z are manufactured. Let us say area occupied by them is 40 square meter, 30 square meter, and 30 square meter. Then we'll allocate the cost in 4:3 3 3 ratio. So we did not say that the factory rent, no, it is not for X. We cannot ignore. We have to find out the allocation. And whatever, let us say 40 square meter, so accordingly, let us say a 4,000 is the cost which will be allocated to product X. Now this process is called as allocation of cost. So there are two varieties now. Once again, let us read this. Costs incurred whether directly or indirectly are accumulated and then allocated to various products for which it is incurred. If it is a direct cost like raw material cost, easily we can identify and we allocate to that product. If it is an indirect cost like a factory rent, then we have to divide this among the products, what we call as a allocation of cost. And when you combine this direct and indirect cost together, then only we get a final cost of the product. So this is the process very important in cost accounting, what we call as a allocation of cost. Let us go for the next one, presentation of data. Now whatever the cost we are analyzing, there are different classification of a cost. That classification of cost we have to understand before we are learning a presentation of data. But it is something like a data is presented very systematically. Material costs are together, labor costs are together, overheads are shown together. Now there can be a further classifications called as a functional classifications. So all expenses incurred in a factory will be together. All expenses incurred at the office will be together. All expenses incurred at a marking place will be together. So there has to be a proper presentation of data. So let us read these lines now. All costs are presented in a logical sequence as functions. So when you learn the topic of a classification of cost, you will learn what are these functions. As per the nature. Nature means again like material, labor, overhead. Then as per behavior, behavior means what? Fixed cost, variable cost, or such other criteria. There are many criteria here, including the identity, which means direct cost or indirect cost. So based on these all classification like function, etc., the data is systematically presented. Now this consists systematic classification first and then presentation of a data for analysis purpose. When you present a data systematically, you can read also systematically, you can analyze that data systematically, you can draw the conclusion out of that systematically. Now this is what in a scope of cost accounting we are going ahead. Next one is analysis of data. Let us read these lines. The data prepared by the cost accountant is further analyzed with reference to similar comparable data. So whatever data you got, this is our cost. Then we try to compare with earlier year, whether it is as per the last year or it is more. So that is the one way of looking at it. If suppose earlier data is not available, then we have done some market survey and we thought that for manufacturing this product, our cost will be, let us say, 100 rupees per shirt to us material. But if this cost is more than 100, then comparison is there. What we expected and what it is. So we have to take the suitable analysis of this. So let us read this. The suitably arranged data is compared with past results or standard cost. Standard cost means whatever calculations we have done and we assume that that will be cost, or expected cost. This is just an expectation that yes, we manufacture this, so this is our cost. So we are comparing with that. And the main part of the analysis or conclusion is the deviation in cost is studied for further remedial actions. So if there is any deviation, if positive, very good, we'll go ahead with that. If there is a negative, means cost is more than expected, then we should curtail our cost. We should think on that cost and how to reduce that cost. We have to plan for that. Now next one is report to the management. Obviously, the first five parts role mainly cost accountant is doing. Now they are coming to the management, those who may not be expert in cost accounting, those who are decision maker person, those who are the owners of the company, those who are the managers of the company. Now what they will do, the complete process of ascertaining a cost is allocation and then analysis is presented to the management for decision making. So whatever these five parts were there, all those will be properly studied by the cost accountant and finally it will be given to the management by with their opinion what is going ahead with this. And then management will study all this together and they will form their own opinions. So they are going to take certain decisions. So reporting to the management is the main scope of the cost accounting. Beyond this reporting, next step comes is a decision making. Now this is utmost important decision. This is utmost important as decisions are taken on the basis of analysis of data. The decisions are taken for corrective actions or for better performance in due course. Once the management study all those things, they can take certain decisions. And for what purpose these decisions are there? For future actions. How to go ahead in future. Now these are the total 7 scopes of cost accounting that we have to study. And this is the module 1a, objectives and scope of cost accounting. Thank you very much.